What's up, money shots? As you guys can tell, we are missing the beautiful Megan making money today. She is in Ohio. We just launched there not too long ago. I believe they're in Columbus, Rico. Do you got any details on what everybody's doing over there?
Yeah, I think the playing games tonight in Dayton, and then streams in Columbus.
Sounds like a great time to me. I have a couple of things planned over the next couple of weeks. New York City is on my itinerary, so maybe I'll finally get to meet you in person. We shall see. I'm sure this team is going to break my heart and not end up in the Sweet 16, but that's beside the point. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk Thursday and Friday games, but before we do, Rico, over the Barstool Sportsbook, you guys have a pick'em parlay up. Can you let everybody know where they can bet it at the Barstool Sportsbook and what the three teams are?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up as we speak. The pick'em parlay, which thank God, I shouldn't say that, but we did that. We picked every game last year, and it was like just torture of like trying to figure out which way we were going to go. So we cut it down. Dan and I both really loved Houston, minus the 19.5 against Northern Kentucky. I'm probably going to tell you right now, if you pull up the app in front of you, what's the highest you can move Houston? Can you get it 24.5, 26.5? Some
you
crazy.
Might be able to move it that high on the stool.
I do. I think they're going to. I think they're going to smoke them. They're going to smush them. Dave loves Grand Canyon plus the 16.5 against Gonzaga, and I gave out.
Does he love them because their student section's super awesome, or
he loves them? Dave. This is Dave's. Dave thinks Grand Canyon's going to win outright. I'm bullish on Gonzaga, but for this case, let's take Grand Canyon to cover. Let's keep everybody happy. And I like Kansas State minus the 7.5 against Montana State. Now, as Montana State has improved, team has improved, but Kansas State, the Big Sky is really bad. Montana State was overmatched last year. Too much firepower. I'm going to go with that. So bet $25 and get $10 bonus cash if a 13 to 16 ranked team or seeded team completes an upset in the first round. Opt-in required. Terms and state restrictions apply. See app for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER for help. Must be 21 plus. So the pick'em parlay is great. We have the sign-up bonus. You got the buzzer beater bonus, like a lot of things going on at the Barstool Sportsbook for the first 4 days.
So you can move Houston all the way up to minus 31.5 plus 300. That's insanity.
I'd go 20. I'd probably go 27.5, 28.5.
You can go 20. You can go 27 plus 188. You can go 27.5 plus 195.
I'm probably going to do that. I mean, think about it, right? What are we talking about? Like, first off, Northern Kentucky wants to play this slow style. Their rebounding margin is negative. They play slow, awful offense. It was a miracle they won the Horizon. I gave them out, no big deal, but it was a miracle they won the Horizon. Houston's going to smash this team off of a loss, too. And what they've done.
Just an awful loss, some injury bugs. And plus, they already had the 1 seed all but locked up.
Yes.
I mean, they didn't really have a lot to play for, right?
No, and they still got the Midwest instead of going west. So they knew something. They must have known something. But if Sasser comes back, even without Sasser, I think they absolutely smoked this team.
All right. That is the pick and parlay. Again, go under the Barstool Sportsbook, click exclusives, and you can tail Dan, Rico, and Dave. I don't know how I feel about this K-State team. And that's just because they have frustrated me all season long. So I'll give you my brief synopsis. I did have to give out 12 picks for the newspaper I used to write for in Las Vegas. I've been in their contest for the last 5 years. Won it 2 of the last 5. Had an awesome March Madness. And he's like, I need 12 games from you. I'm like, 12 games? So I did add K-State there, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get to the window with this team. I want to see what they're really made of here in March. We obviously know they're well coached. We know that they have a deep bench. We know what they're good at and what they're bad at. And what they're bad at is what they're really bad at, Rico, and that is turning the ball over and not making their free throws. So they kind of concern me here. Hopefully they don't get caught looking ahead to New York, because as you mentioned on Monday, look at the close proximity for not 1, not 2, but 3 of the guys on the Wildcats roster. That would be pretty awesome. And I'm sure a dream for each one of them growing up would have been to play at Madison Square Garden. I do have a flight booked there. I will be there. Let's just hope K-State does what they're supposed to do and gets there. I'm going to try not to worry about whether or not they can cover against Montana State. It's frustrating.
Montana State forces some turnovers, top 75. I just looked that up, forcing the turnovers. The only thing is they'll get crushed on the glass. Really, really bad offensive rebounding team. Kansas State is pretty good at that. They'll limit them on the glass. Second chances. I think Tang's got enough here. I like the guys. It's his first year, but I like guys who've been around the dance and know what to say. If you look at like Arizona didn't go out early in either one of Tommy Lloyd's first 2 years. Am I crazy? Or was last year his first year?
No, they have one first round ATS loss. And I think it was last year. I actually sent it to our producer, David Blattman, this morning. Arizona's been really great against the spread in the first rounds. But granted, sometimes those teams are due for regression.
Just even to get a win, though. I think Tang has been around forever of like, all right, hey, I've seen – and Baylor has had some bad losses in, the Ron Hunter and trying to think. There was probably another one they got upset that I'm forgetting. But either way, it's like he's seen the good, he's seen the bad. All right, guys, this is what we do. This is how we dial it in. This is how you eat. This is how you get off the plane. Like he's been around long enough. It's also he's a little locked in of, hey, it's my first chance, 20 years to get a coaching. Like I ain't going out in the first round. I got a ring. I'm not doing this to get out. So I like that. And I think they'll be dialed in and they'll take care of business.
All right. I love to hear that. Let's start off with Thursday games. And just so happens to be me, Megan, and Mincy's bracket busker that we drafted yesterday, or on Monday. Shout out to Mintz. Thank you for covering that one for me as I was dead to the world coming off a red-eye flight. And even still, he didn't even use a camera on Zoom. He just was like the traditional screen. So I'm thinking Mintz might have stayed out all night himself as well. But he did with the third pick at West Virginia for us. The rules were we had to take a 9 through 16 seed. So, of course, I was looking at a path here. I had to give Rico a little ration of shit that if West Virginia can get past Maryland, maybe they're going to give fits to Alabama. That is going to be a very tough win. But I do like them here in this first matchup. They are my best bet for these first 2 days, and that's because they have the stronger offense, Rico. And that's what I'm looking at here. You know what we've seen from Maryland all year. Defensive team at home. We know that they don't give up a ton of points. But then you put them on the road, and it's all of a sudden they're a different team. They started off really hot there in January, early February, and they kind of went on a skid towards the end, losing 3 of their last 4. And then on the flip side, West Virginia really started to ratchet it up to end the regular season. And while they didn't come out really hot in the Big 12 tournament by any means, I do think this team is poised to win this game and possibly 1 or 2 more. So that was our bracket busker pick. What did you guys pick for the bracket busker?
We took Mississippi State and Pitt.
That's right.
I'll be honest, I was kind of hoping it was Mississippi State a little bit, but either way, I'm feeling good about Pitt.
So let's see. How do you think they're going to match up against Iowa State? Right.
Fine. They just played Iowa State, except they were wearing maroon, not red. They're a bad offense. Mississippi State, bad offense. Good defense. They did what they had to. Could have lost the game. I mean, it was a rock fight type game. Got lucky shooting the 3 well. I don't know if they can replicate that lights out type performance. They're probably due for a little bit of regression. But you're talking about an Iowa State team who lost the play. I forget the name, but he definitely lost. They've lost a guy recently, correct?
So this was kind of the problem, and they've been hurt really, frankly, since Caleb Grill left.
Yes,
that was in early February. I think they lost outside of the TCU and Baylor game. I think they lost like 7 of 9 without him, and it was just they just hadn't been the same since. Even
more so. I mean, February. So when did they lose him? Like end of January, early February.
I want to say that there was he played, and then all of a sudden there was an announcement that he was no longer with the program. Like 2 weeks later, I don't know if there was an investigation. I kind of missed some of the drama there.
Yeah, I'm leaving that. I leave all that stuff off the court alone. But either way, you're talking from February 1st. This is an Iowa State team who's from February 1st till now is 7th defensively. Okay, that's great. 133rd offensively. So very, very similar to Mississippi State. I think Pitt, I like what Capel's got. A little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And if you look at Mississippi State in that same time frame, 179th on offense, 10th on defense. So don't tell me that Mississippi State's defense can squish Pitt or Iowa State's. It's the same type of metrics. They're giving up the same kind of points. I think Pitt's got some room here to go get the win. I think Pitt's live. It wouldn't surprise me if Pitt gets favored here too. The way these
if you want to start looking, it is not out at the Barstool Sportsbook yet, but I just did another show right before this, and Pitt is actually a 4-point underdog right now,
Okay.
Rico, as they're starting to pop up on the screens. And I'm going, what am I missing here? Because you just nailed it. I didn't even think of the comparison. Pitt literally did just play the SEC version of Iowa State. I also would have to slightly give them the coaching edge here. I wouldn't say a significant edge, but I just haven't been impressed with TJ this year. I haven't been able to see them overcome some of those obstacles. Yes, they had some nice wins at home. And then, of course, going down to Waco and getting that very wonky win as an 8-point dog over Baylor. But outside of that, this team has really just not been impressive. They turn the ball over almost as bad as Kansas State, and they are a worse free throw shooting team, yet they're laying 4. So I thought that was a really odd line. I'm sure it will be out here on the Barstool Sportsbook shortly. So let's keep it moving along, Rico. And if I skip over one that you're not on.
No, just real quick, too. So the West Virginia-Maryland game and this one with the ACC going against the Big 12, I don't think they do us a lot of – well, that game's Friday. But the first game of the day, it really sucks that it's West Virginia against Maryland because I feel like the conferences can tell you the story. You know, you can really figure out, oh, well, is the Big 12 for real? Is the Big 10 this bad? And one game's not an outlier, but we'll start to see those differences of who's ahead of who.
And I like that because I had a lot of people after I put out my bracket, and I said on the show, I'm not a big bracket person. I did one bracket. I didn't even enter any contests, anything. It was just for the people. And they said, wow, you're really heavy on the Big 12. And I go, where have you guys been all year? I've been heavy on the Big 12 since January. And that is because top to bottom, I do believe they're the best conference. Now, that doesn't always correlate to March. Sometimes that's a gauntlet that you beat each other up through January and February, and you get to March and all of a sudden you wonder why you have tired legs and you can't compete. So it's not always a benefit, but let's go to the next game that I'm on Thursday, Utah State -1.5 over Missouri. I'm going to let you talk about this one because right before we started the show, you said you were on it as well.
Yeah, so the real thing here is, and Dave had a great quote tweet of my guy, Johnny Fanta, who's the most electric guy. And one of the most electric guys in college. So the offense is here. Missouri's 10th best offense, Utah State 13th best offense. The big difference, Utah State 64th in defensive efficiency, Missouri 178th. I don't see Missouri getting the stops. Oh, and so Fanta said, hey, 2 top 15 offenses here, and they both play in the top third of tempos in the country. Dave goes, say less, Fanta. I'm taking the over. Like, this is going to be very exciting. I do think Utah State gets the stops that they need while Missouri won't. Utah State also shoots close to 40% from 3 and takes a lot of threes. Both teams want to take a lot of threes. Missouri allows 35% from 3. So I think Utah State can get the stop. The thing I'm scared about is, again, I'm standing behind 2 teams that I like here in the Mountain West of Boise and Utah State. And this is a conference that has not done really well in the tournament. So I need to see what's going on. Like, I love Charleston. I think Charleston get to the Sweet 16, but it might be better for me if San Diego State wins. Does that tell me, all right, the Mountain West? Or, you know, the way it's going to go probably is San Diego State wins, I get screwed on Charleston, and I'm holding Boise and Utah State, and the rest of the conference loses, and I get doubly screwed. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the conferences can tell you the story here. I'm a little worried of what conference Utah State plays in. But the SEC is not great, and I don't like Missouri. I really don't. Bad defense.
No, Missouri's been frustrating. I got to see it in person against Arkansas a few short months ago, and they can't defend the 3 ball. So if Utah State happens to get hot from 3, which we know they can, I think it could be a really long game for the Tigers. Let's move on to the next one here, Rico. I want to talk about Oral Roberts Duke, and I think this one's been beaten into the ground. I have 7.5. I bet it on Monday. I was talking about it with our good buddy Nadeau on his show as well. And at 6, I'm kind of like, okay, you might be a little late to the party. And then now I start looking at the splits and I'm going, are they going to be the square dog? On the flip side, you've got Duke, who I have going to the Sweet 16. I took a lot of flack for that as well. Just because Duke skates by with a couple of W's doesn't mean they can't get in the Sweet 16. They've been playing really good basketball right now. On the flip side, Oral Roberts, one of the most experienced teams in the country. And boy, are they fast. They like to run. Give me your thoughts on Oral Roberts Duke.
Yeah, I would say acquaintance for Nadeau. I don't know if I put him at good buddy just yet, but that's a playful jab. But
I had to say it. Come
Yeah,
on.
I'd still say acquaintance. It's all good.
Okay,
But
deal.
yeah, so listen, contrasting styles here in terms of tempo. Oral wants to get up and run. Duke wants to slow it down. Duke does a great job of limiting the threes. I think they hold their opponents to 30%. You got Vanover in the middle. If Filipowski can get him out on the perimeter, he's in trouble because we've seen Vanover. He is a stick. But Vanover maybe gets him in foul trouble down low. Smith is a big-time guard. I do worry about this one a little bit in like college football Saturdays. We do that show every Thursday. It's like, who's the dog? Who's the trendy dog? I think it's a little bit of a too trendy dog. I probably lean Oral Roberts because Duke fits a metric to me of a team that does nothing fantastic. Without getting into specifics, it's 80% of these teams who don't do anything phenomenal in terms of like raw rankings and stuff like that go out in the first weekend. Duke fits that metric. Kansas State also fits that metric, unfortunately. So now teams have broken through. Like Carolina was on this list and got to the final last year. Like you've seen teams break the mold. It happens. But Duke does nothing spectacular, play in a weak conference. Even in this 9-game stretch of who they've beaten, like I didn't love some of the teams that they beat. You know, I know it was Miami, but that guy goes down like in this 9 game. So Virginia, who we agree stinks. Miami, a guy goes down. Pitt had to play into the tournament. Carolina stinks. NC State, low seed. Virginia Tech stinks. Louisville stinks. Syracuse stinks. Notre Dame stinks. Like, and then before that, lost to Virginia and Miami. So like, and lost to Virginia Tech and Clemson earlier this year. So like, this Duke team all of a sudden runs through the ACC, where the highest seed is a 4, and we love the ACC. It's a stay away for me. I think Oral's really live here. But I worry so many people just seeing the highlights of, Oral Roberts, Sweet 16.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
Megan was on Oral Roberts for a better part of the season. She was the one that put me onto them. Just a fun little stat, and I'm going to give you guys a couple of these. ACC champions in the first round, 10-20 against the spread. ACC champions in the tournament, 10-20 against the spread, 0-7 in the first round. So that kind of backs up Oral Roberts just a little bit more. And then I've got another stat for the next 3 dogs I'm going to talk about, Rico. But first, let's get into Boise State Northwestern.
Are you doing a 3-dog team parlay?
I'm working on it. I've got 4 dogs right now that I'm really considering. The problem is this. I want to give out teams that I genuinely think I can win outright. And in college football, I dig deep. I find those teams. In March, sometimes it feels like it's a little forceful. So I don't want to just put something out if not. I had somebody ask me earlier. I said, let me work on it today. I've got a ton of shows to do. Good news is Jack doesn't need it for the exclusive section, so I don't have a time frame. So it may be out tomorrow morning, but I will. If it's not 3, it's definitely going to be 2, and I'll let you guys know that one for sure. But I'm going to skip back to one of those dogs here possibly in a minute. But first, I wanted to jump on a team that I took the 1 point with on Monday, now -1.5 at the Barstool Sportsbook. You mentioned the other side, so of course I got to talk about it. I have Northwestern +1.5. Kind of shocked to see a lot of money come in on them and move to the favorite position. But this Northwestern team has just been too good to me. I'm going to keep riding them until the wheels fall off. Now, I know they had the ugly overtime loss to Penn State in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, but that's okay. Now I feel like they're at home. They've gotten rested. They've got a top 25 defense. Now, while they're pretty boring on offense, I think that's what we're going to see from this game versus Boise State is first to 60 wins.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I do like Northwestern's guards. The names are all running together. They got 2 guys with weird names. Why am I blanking? I like obviously Collins.
Bowie. Well, first of all, that's the easy one.
And then they got another guy with a fucking.
I'm sorry, Bowie. I even screwed it up.
And they got another guy with a weird name, but they can obviously play. They make the Big Ten somewhat watchable in terms
Brooks
of
Bonheiser.
Yeah.
I had to look it up just now. I'm not going to lie. I had it screwed up too.
Both teams are going to play really slow, 2 really exceptional defenses. Again, it's going to come down to me here. Like, what do I know about the Mountain West? I kind of like that this game's at night. You know, maybe I can get a feel on the Big Ten and kind of see where they're going. But yeah, I think I'm leaning Boise, and I already hate it.
I know. I'm sorry. There's sometimes you make those bets, and it just is what it is. Now let's go into the 3 dogs that I've been kind of looking at for this week. And then my good buddy Jeff tweeted this out. I actually retweeted it yesterday. Underdogs of 6.5 or more in tournament games versus non-conference opponents off 3 double-digit outright wins. 17-2 against the spread.
I
so we've
saw
got
this
3.
stat. What's weird to me, though, is that the fact that they're clarifying non-conference opponents. In the tournament, you're going to play non-conference opponents.
Yes, in theory, you're going to play non-conference opponents. Every once in a while, you get like weird matchups. I think that is probably because there was like an outlier or two that he had to remove, if that was my guess.
Okay. It's just weird. Like, you're not playing a conference opponent in the first round. You get what I'm saying?
Correct.
Yeah. So, all right. Makes sense. But.
Either way, first one, we're going to go with Colgate. Plus 13.5 versus Texas. I know this is another kind of trendy dog, if you will. And this wasn't a team that I was looking at early on because I saw a lot of people on them. I'm going, okay, Texas has kind of done the same thing that Duke's done, right? And that is just be absolutely red hot. They go out, they win the Big 12 tournament. I mean, this is a Texas team that, back in December, they fired Chris Beard, rightfully so, lose to K-State at home, got a couple wins together, lose to Iowa State on the road. They couldn't string together more than 2 wins there for a while. And I thought, this is just not Texas's year. And all of a sudden they cranked it up. They got a nice win over KU to finish the season, go out there and win the tournament. And then here's this Colgate team, which I'll be honest with you, I didn't know much about. You go to Ken Palm, you see they have one of the longest active win streaks in the country. They're number 1 in effective field goal percentage. They don't turn the ball over. They're number 1 in 3-point shooting. Is Texas going to completely outclass these guys, or are you on Colgate?
So a caller on Pick Central today said, and I obviously know Colgate and I've watched him, and Langle is moving his way up the boards of coaches that can be a good fit. Like, I think Notre Dame should look at him. I know that they want Chris Quinn and different things like that, but Colgate really shoots the 3 well, 40.8% from 3. They shoot a lot of them. 35% of their attempts are from 3. Here's the weird thing. I got a big graphic of stats, and I put Texas in the Final Four. So, all right. So to answer your question,
I have them in the Final Four as well.
Okay, I think we're both going to start shitting our pants when I give you this stat. Long story short, Colgate playing down to the whistle, and Texas with a look ahead of Texas A&M potentially, or if they already know Texas A&M's already in there. I could see Colgate going to the final whistle and backdoor in here. I would play the plus 13.5 with Colgate. I agree with you. I don't think they can win the game outright.
No, I don't either. I don't think they're going to win the game outright either. But Texas has done some wonky things over the years.
Yeah. Okay. Again, an interim coach. Here's another thing to start looking at. Colgate doesn't have a great rebounding margin, 2.5. Do you know what Texas's rebounding margin is?
I'm looking now. Now I don't know.
It's -7.
No, they don't rebound at all.
Their rebounding margin is negative. This is a team that all of a sudden we all love for the Final Four with a first-year coach. It's good to start like you can have all these things early in the week.
I actually lied. I have them in the Elite 8 losing to Houston, but I knew I had them going farther than I should have.
Yeah, I mean, Houston. There's a rumor too. Houston just all they do is rebound. That's all they want to do. They just do a drill where they put a bubble. I think Stanford Steve said it on Pardon My Take. They put a bubble on and they just rebound. Like that, it's just heart and guts and rebound. So I don't know. That Texas, that's the first time I really looked into that stat and that metric. Negative rebounding margin.
That's wild.
And listen, I'm high on Xavier. Xavier's plus 5.8 rebounding margin. So I was a flip-flop between Xavier and Texas here. I don't know. I'm starting. I think there's a little bit of filter on Texas's Instagram. We start looking at the faces that they got. You roll over in bed and it's not as glamorous as you saw in the night before. Oh
no!
I'm just saying. It's not. It's like, oh yeah, there's a couple of filters for Texas. Let's just say that.
Oh boy, Rico, great analogy.
Safe analogy. It's a good analogy.
My generation called it Coyote Ugly, but now I sound really old. So next game, let's move on to Friday. Rico, do you have a hard out at 3:30?
No, we could go a little bit. Yeah, I got a little bit.
There's a few Friday games I want to touch on really quick. I've gotten some really good stuff from you so far. Another game I played, and it's still +2 at the Barstool Sportsbook. So if you like it, bet it there because it is 1.5, pretty much the rest of the market. USC catching 2 versus Michigan State. And I caught a lot of flack for this one. I didn't understand the hate. from Michigan State fans. I just haven't been all that impressed with Sparty this year. They had a nice little start to the Big Ten season and really just didn't impress me, particularly on the road. On the other hand, USC, they had some moments of greatness, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. And that's why I'm looking at taking the better defense plus the points here. And that is because I do think that this team is going to match up really well against Izzo. My only caveat is they have been absolutely terrible against the Big Ten. They have lost 10 straight in matchups versus the Big Ten. And that really concerns me that maybe the Pac-12, we're talking about conferences, maybe the Pac-12 really isn't that good. Sorry, producer David Blattman and your Arizona Wildcats and any UCLA fans in the comment section. But that being said, do you agree with me on USC? Are you on Sparty? Are you passing on the game?
I would lean USC. I think Ebo's very heavy on USC. I like Andy Enfeld's numbers against the spread. This narrative of Izzo in March, I'm probably going to move against. Didn't they barely pulled one out against Davidson last year? My friend Matt McKillop and Davidson pulled that out. I think needed overtime. The year before, they ended up being in the Final Four, but blew a really, really big lead to UCLA. I know we had that run in 2019 when he beat Zion and those guys, but they were a 2 seed. Like at that point, that was when he was supposed to go to the Final Four. I don't know. It's been a while. I think I see more of mid finishes in the Big Ten than I do like elite finishes. I'll probably go USC.
All right, Vermont Marquette. Currently in the Barstool Sportsbook, Vermont is plus 10.5. Marquette, I'm going to be honest with you. I know a lot of people got mad at me. Rico, I've said on this show 100 times, the Big East has just been terrible to me. And that's because I've been just not great at handicapping it. But everybody asked yesterday, why are you going against Marquette? What's your beef? And I said, listen, I love Shaka Smart, but regular season Shaka Smart. He has not done well in the postseason throughout his career, outside of a couple of glimmers there.
Not even a couple of glimmers. How many second weekends? Yeah, one more than me and you. And it was his first one at VCU.
Yeah.
I like the guy. I think Kolik's a great kid. I've talked to him. Like, Shaka dresses like a 19-year-old going to a frat party, but the guy can fucking coach. He found his new home here. Like, he's electric. But, yeah, I worry about – I've said that for the scape of this story and the whole tournament. A lot of guys with not a lot of experience in big-time seeds. A lot of pressure.
That's very true. Pressure is always interesting. Who's going to get out coached? Who's going to come to play? I did take Vermont in that exact same situation as we just talked about with the Dogs catching more than 6. Now they have the nation's second longest win streak with 15 wins. Are they going to go out there and upset Marquette? Probably not as 13-point underdogs, but it would be really great for the bonus over at the Barstool Sportsbook if they did. Next one up real quick while we get Rico out of here, somewhat on time. Iona catching 9. I already took the 9. I know this one's come down a little bit. UConn, same kind of scenario here. I haven't been great in the Big East. UConn really turned a corner there to end their season, and I respect that. But I have some questions about this team, and that's particularly on the turnover front and how many times they foul. It is a really big detriment to teams that commit a ton of fouls. And UConn, Dan Hurley, great coach, no doubt. But this Iona squad seems really scrappy with Rick Pitino. Rico, do you think taking the 9 is the right side?
No, I think you make a point about drawing the fouls. I think of committing fouls. I think that this UConn team is going to draw a lot of fouls.
Okay.
I see Jordan Hawkins going past a lot of guys. I see obviously Sanogo in the middle, the kid Klingon. The MAC has not been great. Like, so you got to think back of a guy who, devours the MAC. And Siena in 08 and 09 with Fran McCaffrey, they were 8-9 seeds. Iona actually had a play-in bid in 2012 or 2013. It was a 14 seed, but they were being considered for that. Like, big time scores. I think the MAC is really, really down and weak. Hurley's going to be really pissed that the game's playing in Albany. Hurley has said losing in the Big East semis, he carried that over to the tournament. He said he's going to wash that clean now, like no moping, new day, like new time to turn over the leaf. I think he's really pissed. He's got to play Pitino in state. I do think UConn's a little too much. I could see UConn drawing a lot of fouls, going to the line here. I'd probably lay the 9.5.
Okay.
Like, I know that doesn't make a lot of sense with Rick Pitino. Also, like, let's be honest. Like, is Rick Pitino looking at places in Providence, Georgetown, St. John's?
Oh boy, you think he's got one foot out the door?
Well, this is a perfect scenario because when Danny Hurley won at Wagner in 2011 before Christmas and beat Pittsburgh, it was already a hot name. I was like, all right, that's great. He cemented it. He's gone. Woj jumps in my DMs and says, he's not going anywhere. I know him real well. He's not going to. Guy, are you going to turn down a multi-million-dollar deal? Are you fucking nuts?
No. Why would you? I wouldn't.
It's so obvious Patino's out. So, and that worked against Seton Hall last year with Kevin Willard, everybody knew he was going to Maryland. So they got trounced. So we'll see.
They did get trounced. Very good point. Something to keep an eye on there. All right, last one I want to touch on, only because we were texting about it last night. Number 12 seed Drake, +2. Miami, the 5 seed, -2 over the Barstool Sportsbook. This one looks so scary. I did get a good text. It looks like Omeyer is going to be back for this one. No, he's not 100%, and that is a concern. But if you guys remember, he went out early in that Duke game, and that was about all she wrote for Miami. But outside of that game, and really the only other asterisk I would have would be that home loss to in-state rival Florida State back in February. I think Miami's a really complete team. But Rico, you're on the other side with Drake, correct?
Not really.
No?
It's a stay away from me. I do like DeVries. I've talked to him, obviously, and he's got his kid who was like a force. Like he could have gone somewhere kind of big, I think, from what I remember. Miami, it's weird. Like the guards are unbelievable, and I do think Drake's gonna have a hard time staying in front of those guys. But if the shots aren't dropping, and they don't play a lot of defense, and Drake slows it down, it could be ugly. Like we've seen this Miami team in the past couple of years fight to get past Loyola, lost to Loyola, fight to get past USC in a dogfight last year. They did go the Elite Eight, but a lot of it is what they really do, So again, this could be a few first-round exits for Larrañaga. I do think this is the dark horse in the region. Like if Houston wants to play slow and Miami wants to play fast, and Sasser's out, Miami is the true dark horse here if you're looking for it. This is a game again. I think everyone thinks it's going to be down to the wire. I think one way I think Miami's either going to win by 15 or lose by 4 to 5.
I can see that too.
It's so weird, and I don't really want the big variable.
Well, there are some unknowns. As I mentioned, the big man is back for Miami, but he's not 100%. We know that. Is Nigel Pack 100%? Lots of questions to be answered now between now and tip-off on Friday. Rico, you are the best. I always enjoy working with you. Just a wealth of college basketball knowledge. Right. Do you have anything to leave our viewers with?
Yeah, I don't like it as much. Maybe I'll tweak it, but I'm going to put on my Kelly shoes, which I'm sure are expensive shoes because Kelly has great taste, dresses real well. But I'm going to go Charleston, Furman, Kent State, which I like because I know it's against your religion to hedge, but it's the last game of the night. Probably a midnight mass. You'll be watching this game Saturday, plus 1983.
Okay. And, well, never mind. We're not going to get back to that reference because, again, I've already aged myself enough on this show. But now I got to tail Rico for this one. Rico at return _ RB on Twitter. Make sure you guys are giving a follow. Again, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Make sure you click that like button, subscribe to the Barstool Sportsbook YouTube channel, and don't forget, download the Barstool Sportsbook app. I believe we are now in 14 states.
Crazy. It's 5 minutes ago we were in 1. It was like we're in Pennsylvania. It's great. It's crazy how fast it all turns. So
love it, love it, love it. Go move the stool, put together your parlays, and don't forget to opt into all of our specials we have up for March Madness. Rico, have an awesome week, and go Nears.
Think of how many states we'll be in when Donnie T's running things.
I can't with you. Get out of here.